So a very basic routine that we can do is come in here into the range, click some heads, and practice this strafing I mentioned in the first tip, right? So moving left and right, stopping to shoot, make sure we're not shooting while we're moving like this, right? And just try to get quicker with it. Hey guys, so what I'm telling you is crouch spraying is bad. Crouching and shooting is bad for right now as a newer Valorant player. Spraying is going to be bad in general, so don't do that for now, right? And what you want to practice is strafing and tapping or bursting when you're standing still, right? Don't shoot while you're moving. Because see how my bullets are going off to nowhere? If you find information like this throughout the video helpful, make sure to check out the full Valorant Competitive Fundamentals course in my Patreon link down in the description below. Basically, it's information just like it is throughout this video, except for over a full hour. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching all of those who are new to Valorant on console some really valuable tips that will help you getting onto the right track and improving significantly in Valorant. Now, you guys seem to really like my last video. Someone commented and said, what about drop shotting? And what I think this person is referencing to is in Call of Duty, you can go full prone and start spraying. And it's actually pretty effective because in Call of Duty, you can prone really quickly. And spraying is, you know, the optimal way of shooting in that game. However, in Valorant, crouching is actually bad because you see when I'm moving left and right while I'm standing, I'm actually moving really fast. But whenever I'm crouching and I move to the left and to the right, you see how much slower I go? Now, this means you're going to have a harder time avoiding shots, and so therefore drop shotting, or as it's called in Valorant, crouch shooting, is actually not good. So you don't want to be doing that, and instead what you want to be doing and what you really want to pick up, and this is something that a lot of you console players might not be used to doing, it's called strafe shooting. So you can practice this in a custom game or in the range. Instead of crouching or standing still when you shoot, you want to move to the left and to the right. So just practice doing this. You guys, what you want to understand as well is you need to be standing completely still when you shoot. So when you'd be shooting in this pattern is like here, 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 right? And notice I'm not spraying, so it's not like, it's more like a tap, or what you might call a burst, where you can go like, and this is going to become second nature, but to a lot of you guys at first, this is going to be very difficult for you. But just understand, basically what I'm telling you is crouch spraying is bad. Crouching and shooting is bad for right now as a newer Valorant player. Spraying is going to be bad in general, so don't do that for now, right? And what you want to practice is strafing and tapping or bursting when you're standing still, right? Don't shoot while you're moving, because see how my bullets are going off to nowhere? Like in Call of Duty, you can do this, or you know, in other games you can do this, right? I know not all of you might be Call of Duty players. I know there's other FPS games, but just understand that that's the way you're going to want to be peeking. So guys, one more thing I'm going to teach you before we move on here is whenever you're peeking an angle, guys, make sure that you're not really close to the wall. You guys might have heard this on another video, but look at this white thing right here. It's called a vision cone. It's what I can see, so I can see right here. There. Right? I can see right there right now. And whenever I peek close to a wall, notice how this vision cone expands really quickly, right? You see how quickly this is exposing? So what that means is I'm exposing my body quickly, but if I step back like this and I peek, notice how slowly it's kind of appearing, right? So what this allows for is instead of fully exposing yourself from here to here, all in an instant, you can expose yourself slowly like this, and like this, and like this. And because, right, an enemy could be not here, not only here, but here, but here, but here, but here, but here, right? They could be in all those spots. So by exposing yourself like this, you expose yourself to all these potential enemies. And what you want to do instead is peek slowly, right? Because in this game, it's important to not, you know, this game's tactical, right? So you want to be like a surgeon. You want to be very surgical about how you peek and how you do things. And the more surgical you are, generally the better. But you also don't want to be super slow, so you have to kind of find a balance. The reality of Valorant is that aim is really important. It's not the only thing you want to be focusing on, but it's, I would say, about half of the battle in terms of improving your skill and ranking up. So what you want to do here is come into the practice range, click practice, come up to these bots, and something you can do is, I am on mouse and keyboard, but it doesn't really matter. Improving your aim is improving your aim. So no matter what device you're using, this is going to improve your muscle memory and make it easier for you to be consistent in hitting heads. So if you're someone who plays Call of Duty, I'm not saying you are, you might be prone to aim for chests, and understand that this is not what you want to be doing. It takes significantly longer to shoot someone in the chest and kill them, or in the feet, as it does to shooting them in the head, right? So a very basic routine that we can do is come in here into the range, click some heads, and practice this strafing I mentioned in the first tip, right? So moving left and right, stopping to shoot. Make sure we're not shooting while we're moving like this, right? And just try to get quicker with it. If your sensitivity feels weird, you can change that. It is a little different on console with the controller, but it's the same idea, right? Just do what's comfortable for you. Do what is most consistent for you. Kind of do as I do. You might get up close to them like this. You might back up a little bit farther like this. You might swap weapons like the Vandal if you're using the Phantom. And you might even come farther back. And the reason that we might move like this is because, you know, whenever you're in a game, you're not always fighting someone at the same distance. You're not always fighting someone with the same weapon. We're fighting people with different weapons all the time in an actual competitive game. Making sure we're not shooting too fast with a weapon like the Sheriff, like this. See how the bullets go up? So make sure we're shooting slow enough for it to be fully accurate. Just getting a general sense of the different weapons of the game. Getting a feel for how they work, how they shoot, the recoil, the range you need to be in order to, you know, properly use it. Maybe buying or trying out a weapon you've never used yet in the game. So just practice like this for, you know, 10-15 minutes to start. If you think that's too long, you can even do 5 minutes. If you don't think that's enough, you can do 20 or 30 minutes. And what I'd recommend is also sprinkling in deathmatch, because deathmatch, you know, this is great for improving your raw aim, but something that deathmatch does that this will not do is give you experience fighting other people. Now, whenever you're fighting other people, it's different than fighting these people who are just standing still. It's going to be quite a bit different, maybe even more difficult, and it's also going to improve other parts of your aim and your brain that are going to be just as important and competitive. Okay, so the next thing I think would be really helpful to learn for a console player is going to be using your credits and understanding Valorant economy. Now, this is something that can be a little tricky to understand at first because it's not really in a lot of other FPS games, but I'm just going to give you a very brief breakdown, and so you can kind of understand. And if you want another video that goes in deeper detail on this in the future, let me know. But basically, guys, in the top left corner here, as you can see, the white outline is going to be the credits you have right now, and this bottom number here that's a little smaller and a little more gray is going to be the amount of credits you will have next round, the minimum amount of credits you'll have next round, assuming that you die and get no kills right now, right? There's also, if you hover over this, it'll tell you exactly how many credits you can get from killing people, planting the spike, if you win the round, and stuff like that, right? Also, if you lose multiple rounds in a row, you gain extra credits. So keep that in mind. But guys, mainly just pay attention to how many credits you have and what the minimum next round is. So whenever you start the half off, you're going to be buying a pistol. You're going to have 800 credits. So generally what you want to buy is like a ghost and some abilities, or a sheriff, or some keep the classic and just buy up some abilities if you're someone like Sage or something and you just want to use your abilities. And what's going to happen is you're either going to win or you're going to lose pistol round. And after you win pistol round, what you're going to want to do is buy something like the Guardian or the Spectre or the Bulldog and some light armor so that you can actually win the second round very easily, because your enemies who you just beat on pistol round, they're going to have significantly less money than you. And what this means is they should be saving, and if they buy, they're only going to be able to buy something like a Stinger or maybe a Spectre, but they're not going to be able to buy armor, and therefore you're going to be able to duel them at a really long range with something like the Guardian or the Bulldog, and you're going to be able to easily kill them. And so this is why economy is important. Another thing that you guys really are going to want to take away from this tip is don't be buying every round. If you guys lose pistol round, right, and you can't really afford much of these because you only are going to have maybe 1,900, 2,000 credits depending on how many kills you get, you're just going to want to save up. What I like to buy in these scenarios is something like a Sheriff, and then it'll say min next round like 3,400 or something like that, meaning after you lose this round or win this round, you can buy light armor or heavy armor depending on if you lose or win. And you can buy the Phantom or the Vandal on a full buy round, right? And a full buy round is where you're buying as much as you can with your team. And, you know, buying with your team is important, but in lower ranks, and if you're new to the game, that's not always going to happen, and just don't let it frustrate you too much. Now, one other thing is, if you can and you want to try, you can buy the Operator. The Operator is the most expensive weapon in the game. This weapon is extremely strong. It's a one-shot body shot. So that means if you hit them in the body, they die, no matter what the range is, unless you hit them through a wall. And this is, you know, something you can buy if you have some extra credits and you just want to experiment. Alright, so now I'm going to be teaching you why sometimes the best defense can be a good offense, especially if you're playing a more aggressive duelist or initiator. But basically, on this site on Icebox, it can be really tricky to hold this site sometimes because people just run it down and it'll be hard to hold. But sometimes the best defense is a good offense, and what this means is you can play a little aggressive. One of my favorite spots is right here, kind of sitting like this, and what the enemies will do is they'll sometimes run up here and jump up here like this, and as they're jumping up here, you can just catch them and kill them, just like this. And generally, you get that kill and you can dismiss or dash away pretty safely. And then from there, you can flash and see how many there are and stuff like that. But another thing you can do is, if they're not Sova darting this, if they are, you're going to want to have your team shoot it, but you can kind of come up here and just look for one. Another way to play aggressive is to come on top of this box here, and as soon as right is the last second before the round starts, do something like this, latch on, and then start shift walking halfway across the rope, and then you're in a beautiful spot here where you can catch some people as they start to walk up. They may or may not see you, but there's a good chance you can get at least two here. Another thing you can do is get off of the rope, kind of like this. So jump, and then just land on this, and a lot of people you'll see kind of fight like this, right? And then you can even jump all the way up, look for a one kill. And this is one way how you can play aggressive on defense on Icebox, and you can apply this to other sites and maps as well. However, guys, if you're doing this and you're simply just not getting kills, which will happen, trust me, you'll go for kills, you're like, alright, Duckeeh said to play aggressive, this is how I'm going to get my kills, but you're going to try one of these and then you're going to die instantly, and that's just how sometimes the reality of Valorant is. Now, sometimes the best defense is a good offense, but sometimes the best defense is to play really passive. And so some other spots you might consider playing are like back here, like this, just tucked away. Again, they're not, it might seem like you're pretty passive, but they're not going to be planting unless they go through you. So although it might suck to have to play like this, but if you've been going aggressive like 3 rounds in a row and it's just not working, you know, you want to try something a little different. So this is a great spot. Playing back here is a great spot whenever they're coming up. Playing back side is one of the best spots you can play because you can hold down both sides, although they can plant here without going through you. Another place I like to play is kind of here. This is still pretty aggressive actually, but this is something that might be worth trying. You can catch people who jump up on top of pipes, and then maybe even up here and even close sometimes. So guys, hopefully this makes sense. So guys, for our final tip, I have something that's, again, Valorant specific and something you might not have experienced in a lot of other FPS games, and that's going to be how you move. So running versus walking, and also running with your gun out and running versus with your knife out. So basically, when you're running across the map and you're not really worried about enemies hearing you, then you want to just run with your knife out. And the reason you want to do this is because you actually move a bit faster than if you were to run with your you know, your main gun out. And we can really showcase this when we run with the op. So you can see here I'm moving fairly slow, so you can see how I'm moving right here, right? And then if I pull my knife out, you're gonna see a pretty significant increase in speed. So this can actually matter in some situations, especially when you're trying to beat enemies. You know, like say there's like 3 enemies here and you're trying to run away to go back toward A, so you can fight the 2 enemies here. If you're running with your op out like this, then you're not gonna beat the enemies who are running from the same distance with their knives out, right? So just keep that in mind, and you know, that's something you're gonna want to do. Also, whenever you're walking toward a site, you might actually not want to run. It's not always about trying to get there quickly. Sometimes it's about trying to get there quietly and unexpectedly. So the problem with running, the nice thing about running is, yeah, you're going quick, but you also make a lot of noise. You make a lot of footsteps, as you can hear here, right? So what you want to be doing instead is walking up, clearing things out nice and slow, right? And they're not going to be able to hear you, so the only way that they're going to be able to know if you're coming or not is by peeking you. And if they peek into you like this, there's a good chance you're going to mow them down because you're going to have your whole team here, right? Hopefully, some of your teammates anyway. But once you get spotted, this is called playing contact. So once you have some kind of contact with the enemy, either they shoot you, you shoot them, or they just see you or you see them, then you start running, right? Because then they already know that you're here. If they know that you're here, you might as well start running, because then there's only so much time until the enemies for A start to come over. So as soon as they know, you start running to try to kill them, take control of site, plant, and get the spike down, right? So another thing, guys, last thing I want to teach you here is whenever you're running, you make noise, but right now, notice how I'm holding shift and moving left and right. Something you can do actually is let go of shift and move left and right for just a little bit without making noise. So notice how I'm not really making footsteps here unless I go too far. So if I go too far, then I'll make a footstep. But if I just go the right distance, I'm actually not making a footstep. And this can be really useful for whenever you're trying to like peek around a corner, but you don't want to like do it slowly, right? Because if you do it slowly like this, then it's gonna not favor you. All right, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you again very, very soon.